My name is Danica, and today I want to talk to you about something I've been thinking about lately. So my question is this: what was the first lesbian book? Or where did lesbian literature start? I've been reading some lesbian literary criticism lately because I want to try to build a timeline of lesbian lit. But I'm finding the definitions sort of difficult to pin down. First there's the word literature. Is literature only novels, or is short stories okay? Like, some might consider the Book of Ruth and the Bible to be the beginning of lesbian literature. And does it have to be fictional? Do diaries or letters count? For example, Anne Lister's diaries are kind of a big thing in lesbian literature and lesbian history. And that brings up another point. Am I dating it from the time they were written or the time they were published? Because Anne Lister's diaries were written in the Victorian era, but the code she was writing in wasn't cracked until the 1930s, and then it wasn't actually published until the 80s. And that's just the word literature. The word lesbian is a lot more difficult. Lesbian is obviously a modern term. It's not something that people would have used historically. And even when we're saying lesbian as lesbian literature, do we even mean lesbian? Because usually we seem to be talking about bisexual women as well. And how are we supposed to tell what fictional characters from decades or centuries ago would have identified as? And what counts as a lesbian relationship? Does it have to have a sexual element, or is a romantic relationship enough? And what's the line between a passionate friendship and romance? And then what about all the lesbian characters that might have more in common with trans men today than lesbians? If a character is in a romantic relationship with a woman, but they go by a traditionally male name and dress in men's clothing, and even live as a man for some time, do we include them under the umbrella of trans literature or in lesbian literature? Do we decide that character is trans, or that they're a butch lesbian, or that they are just trying to escape from the sexist standards of their time? And there's even more when you combine the words. What's lesbian literature? What's a lesbian book? Is it literature that's written by a lesbian regardless of content? Is it literature about lesbians regardless of the writer? Is subtextual lesbian content okay, or only if we're pretty sure that the author was a lesbian? How much lesbian content does a book need before it counts as lesbian? And do we want to include in lesbian literature the writing about lesbians that was condemning them? Google seems to say that The Well of Loneliness by Radcliffe Hall was the first lesbian book, or at least the first lesbian novel. But you can just as easily read that book as a trans narrative. At the time that Radcliffe Hall was writing, there wasn't separate categories of sexual preference and gender identity. There was just one collapsed idea of the invert. So it's impossible to kind of disentangle those when they were just inherently mashed together in the conception of the time. I feel like the natural place to start in a lesbian literature timeline is with Sappho. She's the one who gave us the word lesbian. But she might have been married to a man, or maybe she wasn't. And maybe she was interested in men and women, or maybe just women. Or she was just writing poems for other people, usually at weddings, and who knows how much of her poetry is autobiographical, and then most of her poetry is lost anyway. It seems silly to me to make The Well of Loneliness the beginning of lesbian literature when it was written in 1928. And even accepting Sappho, in the 2nd century there was the Dialogues of the Courtesans, which talked about two women living together as man and wife. I run the blog The Lesbury, which is about lesbian and queer women books, and I run Fuck Yeah Lesbian Literature, the Tumblr, but really I don't think there is one definition of lesbian literature. It's something that I'm passionate about, but it's not something I can define easily. I've been trying to make this timeline basically with no hard and fast guidelines. It's just been stuff that, kind of seems gay enough. If it seems relevant to queer women readers today, then I'll include it. I guess the problem is that lesbian literature isn't a genre. It's just describing people and stories about certain kinds of people. And people are just not that easy to categorize. So let me know your thoughts about this down below, and thank you for watching. Bye.